Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast covering Ipswich Town since 2015. I'm Richard Woodard and you're tuned into our midweek live Q&A, chatting all things Ipswich Town, where you set the agenda. Joining me as sometimes, is, let me get this right, Craig Fimbo with an M.
Perfect. Absolutely
Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Craig,
yeah.
how are you?
Phonetically, absolutely correct. Yes, and and as Ben says, you're not leaving now to ask the person whose name it is if it's how it's pronounced nowadays. You just got to go with your own thing.
Yeah, I was listening to that and thinking, not so sure. I'm gonna strive for pronunciation perfection, and I will learn along the way as I fail. So there you go. Great to see so many people in the chat already. We want to hear from you as always. All the details of where to get involved are scrolling across the bottom, but do get involved in the live chat, whether you're on YouTube, on Twitter or Facebook. We see you and we salute you on this Wednesday evening or Wednesday morning, depending in the world you are. Transfer window is probably going to come up, maybe. 7,000 supporters at MK Dons might come up. ITFC women might come up on their FA Cup draw. Gillingham on Saturday might come up. We will go where you want us to go. So get your thoughts and questions and observations in the comments and we'll come to them as soon as we can. Craig, do you want to give us your kind of instant reaction to the deadline day or the January window as a whole before we get into specifics? And I'll stick some comments up and say hello to everyone.
Yeah, I think it was obviously it started off with a bit of a flurry, didn't it, in terms of the good news with Macaulay Bonne, and then I think had it been the other way around and we'd sort of signed Bonne on to the end of the season and signed Walton permanently, and that happened in the last 2 or 3 days, I think some people might have seen it a little bit more positively, shall we say? As it is, they were sort of done and dusted early doors, and then we were sort of just seeing people leave, more people leave, and then the guys that did come in were sort of replacing people that we'd already got in the building, weren't they? In terms of Coulson, getting a left back for Coulson and getting a centre midfielder for Harper, who left on loan. It's just, I think, looking at it, we've obviously lost some strength in depth, but by the same token, the strength that we have lost in depth, they weren't getting near the first 11, were they?
No.
You can talk about Fraser in a sec, and my player of the season, Raheem Harper's obviously gone.
We've chosen really poorly, you and I.
We haven't, mate? Yeah, of all the two people to have talking about a transfer window tonight, yeah, our two guys have gone out the door, one permanently and one hopefully temporarily.
Yeah.
But I say, from what I've seen so far, I've seen Backinson's 3 games he's played so far in the flesh, and he's all right. I wouldn't say he's anything more than spectacularly improvement on what we had, and your man Fraser never really got a look in to show what he could do for one reason or another. So slightly underwhelming last week, I suppose, but in the whole scheme of things, it was more of a consolidation of what we had and a slightly condensing of the squad to make it a bit more workable, I'd have thought, from McKenna's perspective.
Yeah, there was a sense of a little bit of clearing of the decks, wasn't there? And Joe of this parish has asked for a rating out of 10. I can see some folks have given their scores in the chat as well, so we'll get to those in a sec. But yeah, how would you rate it? I mean, let me just put on the screen, just for the avoidance of doubt, so we know, we can just recall what's happened there. So Christian Walton signing from Brighton on an undisclosed. Backinson we've talked about. Thompson signing end of last week. Nick Hayes was the only real news on deadline day itself. And then all these departures, NCR, Lekenlock, Holy, Fraser, Harper, Nolan, Clements, and then the loans of Louis Barry and Hayden Coulson were terminated. Your thoughts,
Yeah,
Craig, out of 10?
we're saying about just reducing the size of the squad. Sorry, 7. We know you were talking about reducing size of the squad. You've got three left backs there have gone. I know I appreciate we brought one in, but you've got in the whole scheme of things, having 3 left backs available in the shape of Kenlock, Clements, and Coulson, all going out the squad, just goes to show what a sort of crazily sized squad it was. And as I say, I think McKenna's come out today, hasn't he, and said that it's just allows it to be a bit more manageable. And interestingly, he was saying that those that are left now, you've got a fair chance of actually getting in the team now, because there must have been these guys who are 18th, 19th, 20th in the squad must think, "Crush, I'm out training every day, and literally I know I've got no chance of getting any. If I'm the 4th choice left back, I've got very little chance of getting a kickabout on Saturday."
And we need to remember that this is McKenna's first management gig, and the last thing you want is a situation where you have to try and reassure or placate a RC footballer who's not in the team, and that's a total consequence of the ridiculous amount of acquisitions we sign in the window in the summer, isn't it? So I can kind of understand it from his perspective, just to make his life easier, because you said there's some big name players who weren't even anywhere near the team. So some situations. And you gave us 7, didn't you?
Yeah, I think
I'll go
so.
through the
Yeah,
scores so we can.
a solid 7, I'd say. I think it's just interesting that Paul Cook himself said when he came in, "Oh, the squad's far too big. It's too big to manage. I can't be dealing with all these players. We're going to have people who are left out of training sessions and things like that." And we find yourself in exactly the same boat. I'm intrigued. I'm sure people might have their own comments. Actually, it'd be quite interesting to see is who we think is making these signings on whose behalf. For example, Backinson. I can't think for any second that it's nothing other than a Bristol City, Lee Probert, Mark Ashton type of signing, is it?
Is Lee Probert the ref?
Is it Lee? What's his name?
Gary.
Gary. Yeah, I knew it was a Probert. Gary, yeah.
One of the Probert gang. Yeah.
The Probert
the famous family. Yeah. Charlie D. I don't get the over-the-top frustration some fans have had to it in response to Joe's scoring. I'm not sure what they expected. I mean, we've been spoiled, haven't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Summer window. I know there was kind of a really slow start, but when it kicked into gear, it was most Friday nights something was happening on Twitter, wasn't it? And I think folk maybe have just assumed that level of business and activity would continue. I think folk had seen the rather chunky departures in certain areas of the pitch along the lines that you were talking about, Craig. But I think also even into Spannerman, who's at Mackham, watching and spying. We don't play you again until the playoffs. Wink. But Matete, who'd been linked going to Sunderland, was possibly everyone had a little bit of hope, didn't they? Even though the EADT and TWTD poured a little bit of scorn on that rumor. So is it just the fact other teams did quite a lot of business? We'd done a lot of business in the summer, and folk expected that to be sustained. To Charlie's question.
Yeah, I don't know whether people expected the same level of obviously it was never going to be the same level of incomings, but whether people expected it just to keep rolling over. I think it may be more of the case that we did see other teams, who are above us strengthening. Wigan did some decent business and they got a handful in, just to strengthen from a position of strength. Sunderland, as you say, strengthened from a position of strength, and obviously we've got history about not strengthening from a position of strength. And I just wonder whether there's just an unspoken acceptance of where we currently are finding ourselves.
Ask you about that
in the league, and think, well, in the whole scale, it's unlikely. It's highly unlikely, isn't it, that we're going to reach the top 6? So, do we keep our powder dry, see where we're at?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. If we beat Sheffield Wednesday,
yes,
and if you're Matete as well, who are you going to pick? A team that is up in the automatic, Sunderland and the automatics, certainly
third, aren't they?
Yeah, in the top, well in the top 6. and also signing Jermaine Defoe as well. Admittedly, Lee Johnson having left there is a bit of a question mark. But if you had a choice of a team that is already in the top 6 and looking all right and possibly might get a new manager bounce at just the right time, or a team that has just lost to Sheffield Wednesday and is is mid-table-ish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's no, and especially not be funny. A team that's just sacked Lee Johnson's got even more going for it, hasn't it, than ourselves?
Until they go for Roy Keane, who apparently is going for
yeah, very possibly. Yeah, actually, there's some
good luck.
interesting comments. Actually, I think Skip's just said about us having a squad, but also we're still relatively light in centre back, because then we're playing 3 centre backs.
Yeah,
our only reserve is Burgess, who doesn't seem to fit any of those 3 positions, certainly from a wanting to wander out of defence with the ball at your feet perspective. So you could argue that we still see ourselves a little bit light at centre half, but there's been an argument that Thompson can play that left-sided centre half role. If I quite say, it's not as if he needs to be a towering 6'3", 6'4", because Donasian's not that on the other side, is he? And we haven't seemingly been bombarded. I think we've pretty much got those teams out of the way, haven't we? The teams that would launch it onto our centre halves' heads. So we'll wait and see. I think it just allows Kieran McKenna just time to get coaching.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I'm not seeing questions from Facebook or Twitter. So if you're out there watching in those platforms, there's not a huge amount I can do, but I can recommend that you migrate to YouTube if you want to join the conversation, because I'm seeing plenty of YouTube comments. So apologies if we're not working on Twitter. I think the broadcast might be, but maybe not questions. So apologies if you are trying to get involved and I'm not responding to you. Head over to YouTube and give us a thumbs up while you're at it. Why not? For good measure. Let's go back to the comments. Michael Warner, love the magic of leaving Ipswich. Injury-prone players suddenly are fit and signing for a new club. I think he's talking John Nyland, but we need to mention Emir Hughes with his implausible last-minute equaliser for Cole U against Swindon on the weekend. And did you see Alan Judge's goal for them last night?
His Marcus Stewart tribute, wasn't it?
And with made from Ipswich, Miles Kedlock to Scoose, back to Kedlock to Judge to goal. I mean, crazy situation.
Yes, it was a lovely goal, wasn't it? And Miles Kenlock picking up his 2 points for an assist that Cole Skews did that season, where Tom Lawrence was slamming it in from 35 yards every other week, passing it 5 yards and taking the assist for it. Yeah.
We need to very quickly say thank you to David for the super chat on YouTube. Thank you very much, David. We need to sort you out something, don't we? Give us a message. I think Ben was going to sort something out with you, but thank you very much. If you want to do similar to what Dave's doing, if there's a little super chat S button, if you're on the YouTube chat, do get involved in that. But we appreciate that. We don't expect it, but David, thank you so much. Very super generous there, and we do appreciate that.
How about you then, and Fraser, mate? How are you?
Yeah, I'm still in bargaining. I haven't quite got to acceptance. I think the trouble I saw, there was a was it an EFL 72 Twitter account or something doing an assessment of Fraser and giving him lots of kudos for his time at MK Dons, and the thought was that Ipswich had ruined him. There's sometimes a situation where players are just not a fit, right? And we've seen that all the time. I don't think he got a particularly fair rub of the green playing in the position that he wants to. I think it might have been Joe mentioned a kind of sliding doors moment for Fraser when he missed the penalty at Burton, but I saw enough ingenuity. I think he could spot a pass. He was always in the right position at certain times as well when they're attacking moves. I think he was a much more intelligent player than we can give him credit for. But I can understand why that kind of player is not going to be in the team every single week if they're not producing assists or goals. And that was the issue for him, wasn't it? It was that the end product wasn't enough. And he isn't going to add defensive kind of solidity in midfield either, is he?
Or the up and down running that you can make up for if you're not producing.
I'm just frustrated that Louis Barry is another player that I was super excited about signing, and off he's gone to Swindon as well. We need to as I said before, we need to pit Murdo with Craig. But I
Yeah,
wouldn't
but
be surprised if Fraser has a really solid end of the season with Charlton. And I'm not going to say we're going to be made to rue that, but I think he will be a really key player for them. And I think we might think, oh, if we'd persevered, maybe if we'd loaned him to Charlton.
yeah,
But who knows?
that might
Happened now, isn't
not
it?
have been an offer on the table, mightn't it? It's just, as you say, I suppose it's just an inevitable outcome of signing so many players in one go, and also so many players in that top third of the pitch, potentially, that but there are some are going to fall by the wayside, aren't they?
Lee here. I think what they've done is absolutely necessary. Hopefully, a closer knit team. Yeah, I think we can agree with that, don't we? FPL Track, the biggest negative of the winner for me was Simpson. Still don't quite understand that. The fact, well, I mean, he could make a contribution now, couldn't he, Craig?
Well, he could, but
Or is he
I
now
don't know.
frozen out until he signs his deal?
Well, yeah, maybe he's the next one that the manager's going to be told not to pick, that Norwood was before Cook left. Who knows? But I can't imagine he's going to get in above Bonn and Norwood and Piggott and potentially Jackson. Is he? I don't know.
We'll
It just
see.
seems straight. It just seems poor from someone's behalf that he's now got 6 months potentially not playing in his career. He's just had a great first 6 months of this season, and now it's just in stasis. Now everyone just holds still. He's frozen in carbonite and solo type for the next 6 months until such time as something happens in the summer. Either presumably we're going to renew, have the extension triggered on his contract, which means it's another year in any case, and then we'll just see. No one knows what's happening. No one's had a chance to ask anyone about it either. I don't think, have they? Because McKenna said, "Look, it's nothing to do with me, Gov. I'm here to pick the team and coach the team. If he's been brought back for contractual issues, well, no one's come out and added any more meat to the bones, have they?"
No. I'm just thinking of Simpson kind of waiting to go in the carbonite, and Kieran McKenna says, "I love you," and he goes, "I know." Anyway, there's an image for your heads. Ipswich people, Ipswich staff as Star Wars characters feels like a thread for a podcast that we haven't done yet. So if you've got any ideas on that, let us know. Paul Westlake, thank you for Paul, who's doing some sterling work producing us some clips that we're using in the shows and maybe on our socials as well. Evening to Paul. MK Don's average attendance is around 8,200, and we've sold how many tickets? Well, nearly 7,000. So bumper crowd, isn't it? Evening to Eric, good to have you with us. Spannerman's given us his assessment. Ipswich underperformed this season, but teams still fear us. I mean, that's the trouble. We don't know which Ipswich team is going to turn up some weeks.
No.
And that was the same under Cook, and it's the same under McKenna, isn't it?
Yeah, and to a lesser extent, Sunderland as well. Now, both Sunderland and us went up to Bolton, probably expecting to get a half decent result up there, and both of us got turned over to differing degrees, obviously. But and then same. I just think that Sheffield Wednesday result was just and the performance, to be fair, was just such a kick in the guts for everyone. We were on a high. This might be, we could just need to push on, and yet again, it's just that team that's above you just can't gain any ground or any momentum. And Dave was saying the same thing about the next couple of games. Damn well that we'll beat Gillingham, we'll beat Doncaster, hopes get up, and then we'll drop down again.
Yeah, then 7,000 supporters at MK are going to come back unhappy, aren't they?
Yeah.
Michael, I know it's early days. I said after the first game, Backinson is going to annoy me. He thinks he's Paul Pogba, and I don't like Paul Pogba. Is he the second Jet? Thoughts on Backinson? I mean, we need to cut him a little bit of slack because I think he's just come back from COVID, not really featured for Bristol City before and around Christmas. It chucked in at the deep end. He cramped up, didn't he, against Sheffield Wednesday? But he feels, I mean, this is the trouble for me with our recruitment, is our midfield is entirely built around the idea that you've got Sam Morsey in there.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of lobbing all of Paul Cook's eggs in the Morsey basket. Once Morsey's not there, the likes of Backinson or El Mazzuni coming in have to provide that box-to-box defensive aggression to allow the more creative types, which I suspect Backinson is, to thrive. And is that a fair assessment? Or you were obviously there on Saturday, Craig, and
Yeah,
spoke about it on the
yeah,
pod, but
yeah. Well, as I say, I was at Wimbledon as well when he played that game as well, didn't he? And as you say, the guy he wasn't even in the squad for Accrington, and all of a sudden finds himself playing the match, doesn't he? And coming on sub, but he was thrown in the deep end. He probably hadn't had time to play with his teammates, etc., etc. And he does look a technically fine footballer, but just from what I've seen, he just does look a little bit lightweight. Certainly for his size, he looks lightweight. But again, cut him a bit of slack. He was playing alongside El Mazzuni, who probably didn't even know who each other were 24 hours before the match. It's just been one of those things. And I think Dave mentioned it on. I think it was Dave said it on Sunday. Is that similar to Harper? And I backed up Harper in that respect. These guys haven't had a chance to play alongside Morsey. Harper played alongside Evans, didn't he, for the first, how many was, half a dozen matches of the season, and neither of them were pulling up many trees at that particular point in time. It's only ever since really Morsey's joined, as you say, all our eggs in the Morsey basket. Ever since he's joined, Evans has stepped up a little bit, and it would just be nice to have seen Harper have the opportunity maybe to do so as well, and Backinson may have the opportunity to do so now. So I think until such time as he gets everything in his favour, it is still a little bit harsh of us to probably judge him too much.
Yep. MW, I'm pleased with this transfer. We're very pragmatic. We know there is another go in the summer, and if we'd been closer, we might have pushed. Summer there is more contracts end and squad shaping to come. Yeah, I mean there are 9 or so players I think out of contract in the summer. But I think MW is right. I mean it's not a good buyer's market. It's a panic buyer's market in January, isn't it? Typically.
Yeah.
And I did folk kind of underestimating the significance of signing Christian Walton, for example. I think that's possibly one of the best bits of January business I think we've done since there's been transfer windows like this. When you think about it, Macaulay Bonne being retained. I think you mentioned it at the start, being retained for the rest of the season. Loans from Championship and Premier League for Backinson and Thompson, respectively. These will not have been cheap either. So, yeah, I think MW. I think we've got. Yeah, I think we agree with you there.
What would be interesting actually is sorry, Rich, is in the summer. Just picking a position on the pitch is our forwards. You've got 4 forwards at the moment. You've got Bonne, Jackson, Norwood, Pigott. Only one of those is guaranteed-ish to be here next season in Pigott. There's 3 of your 4
Simpson.
who are gone, so it gives scope to McKenna, doesn't it? To despite us having made 20 signings last summer, we've still going to have scope this summer for him to mould a squad into the shape that he needs it.
But at least, unlike Paul Kirk, we won't be settling from a starting point of demolition mode and
0.
Kicking everyone out. Yeah, exactly right. Paul, I wonder if the squad actually needs strengthening or if the players we have just need coaching. I think definitely some suggestions of that elsewhere in the chat. To the latter, I think. No surprise for me with the lack of business. And we know McKenna's a great coach. The chat from the likes of Connor Chaplin and I think others has been really positive on that respect. So
yeah. And and how often do we say, for God's sake, just stop buying players? The whole point of being a football manager is to make the ones you've got better, isn't it? Let's talk about George Burley for a little while. But in the chat I had with him, he was saying the same thing.
Did you speak to George Burley, Craig? Where can folks listen to that?
Oh, you can go onto our YouTube channel and find two interviews. One about an hour about his playing career, and about an hour and 10 minutes about his.
Lovely.
Career, yeah. Oh, but he said himself that.
Oh, can't hear you, Craig. I don't know if you were mugging me off doing kind of the mute gag, but we can't hear you anymore. You gonna come back?
Oh, yeah, I am. Siri just decided. I don't know what I said, but Siri decided to answer about some hotel.
That's happened again as well. No, you're just joking with me now, aren't you?
Yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah, so bringing the ones you play and coaching the ones that you've got to become better players. Yeah, he was talking about Matt Holland. Matt Holland, when he joined, was here. When he left, he was up here, just through coaching. And there's no reason why we can't expect a football manager to make the players he's got better, rather than trying to go out and finding one that's marginally better than the one that he's trying to get rid of.
Lee's thought here about personnel changes in the summer. I think there will be, won't there? Not as many as last summer, but there will be quite a bit, won't there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Joe said himself, it may have been on TWTD or on Twitter, that we'll be in the point where every club will be making 8 to 10 changes. Every club in League One does make 8 to 10 changes, because they've always got that many people out of contract, or half as many out of contract and half that they want to move on. So by definition, you just need that churn of players just to refresh things.
Always in the know is Joe Fairs, and a lot of people a little bit anxious by the lack of cover at centre back now. Joe gathers that Dom, he's on short name basis, is also seen as centre back cover. There you go. There's some information we are sharing with you. Just catching up in the comments again, David. Thank you so much, and thank you for asking us how we're doing. I'm doing all right. Yeah, thank you very much for asking. And Craig, we've already asked you, haven't we? So we will, but it's still important. Do you want to remind us? I can't remember. I can't remember your answer.
No, we spoke off air because I've had COVID. I've had COVID. Everyone.
Oh yes, he's recovered. Everyone.
I'm okay. Yeah. No, we were all right actually. We've all had it. Apart from my little girl, she hasn't had it, despite being in a house full of the plague. But no, we're all good. Thanks.
Yeah, can't catch it over the airwaves, I don't think. Paul Westlake mentioning the miraculous powers of recovery when you leave Ipswich. Coulson injured straight on loan. I don't know if he's played or will play for Peterborough straight away, but yeah, I can understand people are a bit frustrated with that. Ken Lock legend, says Eric Clacton. What else have we got?
One thing is that actually, just while you're having a little look there, and you did talk about Milton Keynes, it's just the sheer number of people that are going to watch games at the moment, isn't it? It's considering it looks like we're potentially just tailing off a little bit in terms of the likelihood of us reaching the playoffs, to still be selling out Milton Keynes, God knows how many times over, but also Doncaster on a Tuesday night.
I think Morecambe's pretty much
Morecambe's coming up in it as well. Yeah. So,
Gary's given his blunt assessment of our options. I hope we see Simpson on the bench going forward. Surely a better option than Piggott as a turning circle of a chieftain tank and the pace of Scott Fraser. Gary, don't hold back, mate.
Yeah, but he does hold the ball up though. I know exactly what he's saying, but he's not as mobile and as active and as aggressive, should we say, in his running as
Skip leaps to his defence. 20+ goals in League One. Poorly. Yeah, I mean, Piggott's a really weird situation there, isn't it? And we hope that maybe next season will be better for him. We were half expecting him to leave on loan, weren't we? There we go. To be fair, it's pretty difficult for a Cole Hugo not to be made in Ipswich. Yeah, fair point. Fair point there. Charlie D, what does a McKenna pre-season look like, Craig? More classroom time? Pre-season trip somewhere? We're not going to a hotel in Ireland because we happen to know the proprietor and can get a mate's rate, I suspect. Any thoughts on what McKenna, hypothetically, what a McKenna?
I would imagine spend an awful lot of time on the training ground, just drilling the team and getting the coaching.
Doing some DIY. I thought you would getting some MDF board. Yeah,
something like that. But who knows? It'd be interesting to see actually where we do end up if we do. God, who knows what the world's going to be like in July to allow us to go various places. But you sort of knew damn well where we were going to end up with dear old Mick, as you were sort of alluding to there. And couldn't do under Paul Cook because no one was allowed to.
Of course, bowls and all that fun stuff. Hopefully that disappears, as you say. Skip's sad about Fraser, but I just don't think he's mobile enough to be a CMNK Max system. Biggest problem was he is best as an attacking 8, which isn't. There we go.
But it's sort of is a position that McKenna uses. That Morsey, I know he's probably not as mobile as Morsey, but Morsey is allowed to break forward and get into the box. But if Morsey's doing it, do you need Fraser to do it? I suppose.
Paul Westlake, what is the biggest transfer regret that we have had? Me and Craig, or we as an Ipswich? I think it's the latter, isn't it? I mean, signing Bullard on a permanent after that loan. I mean, that's the hindsight regret, isn't it?
Yeah, Christ, we'd have been brave not to have done it, wouldn't we? After the loan spell he had, crikey.
Then typically around loans. I mean, lots of money wasted. Paul Taylor.
Yeah, Paul Taylor, George Boyd.
Yeah, any money spent
swinging.
by Roy Keane or Simon Clegg, I should say, and Paul
Yeah.
Jewell, apart from Aaron Cresswell and Luke Chambers.
Yeah. I suppose you had like when we had Bowyer in midfield, we had Bowyer and Bullard in the same midfield. It's probably a bit OTT.
I mean, there's an excellent
mobility.
Video, Paul, on. I think it's on the playlist on our Blue Monday channel because I think it's still in on Ben's YouTube. One of the sliding doors moments in my top 10 in kind of the last 20, 30 years was not spending money in the 14-15 January window and kind of Freddie Sears for 200k, Luke Varney, Chaplow on loan, Paddy Kenny was to the point we talked about Sunderland and Matete. We should have been spending big money. Bournemouth brought in Kenwyn Jones, didn't they? For example, that's probably up there. Any other thoughts, get us in the chat on that. Transfer regrets. There'll be plenty of those, won't there?
George Burley's got 2 at least.
He has indeed. Yeah, in that excellent second part of the interview. You can listen to. Skip wants to bring back Room 101 so that he can propose a sliding doors moment to go into it. There you go, Skip. The pre-match show will be back on Friday morning with me in the host chair and joined by, we've mentioned him already, Joseph Fairs. Well, I think he's making his pre-match show debut for the season, which is great. And he'll be giving us his sliding doors moment, though I'm waiting to hear which managerial era we will be picking from. But pre-match show out Friday morning. I'm looking at Gillingham and a sliding doors vote to follow after that as well.
And Rich might put up the Room 101 table just for old time's sake.
I've deleted it. It's all gone. Sorry. Not selling Jackson last season, Craig, moving you on swiftly.
That was interesting, actually, Lee. You saying that. I was listening to the Kings of Anglia pod last night as they were talking about transfer windows and stuff. £2.5 million, they said we got a bid for Jackson. Presumably that was Bournemouth, was it? When they that's what the guys in the know said, and we turned it down.
Yeah, I can't believe it was that much, but we definitely had at least 2 7-figure bids for
what the reporters of the East Anglian Daily Times.
Well,
if you're saying that they're liars, mate, that's entirely up to you.
I'm like who's the Lindsay Hoyle or whatever is it speaker? I'm like Ian Blackford. Anyone's watching PMQ.
Well, you better get. I'm going to give you one more chance.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you one more chance, Mr. Woodward, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I allegedly retract my last statement. Our colleagues at the EAD2 do a sterling job, and I'm sure any figures and facts they quote are accurate. Howard DK, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. Great show, and thank you for the brilliant. Thank you, Craig, for the George Burley interviews. Fantastic. Thank you for your support, Howard. That's super generous. Thank you so much. We're glad everyone's seemed to enjoy them. And if you haven't, I mean, we've been pretty shameless about mentioning them, haven't we, so far? So you know where to find them. Where else are we going? Graham, even to you. Ipswich midfield is a big problem and no shots on target on Saturday. Why was James Nord on the bench?
Yeah, I think that, it was a problem, and it is a problem when Moores is not there, isn't it, Graham? And it's not, and that shots on target stat from Saturday, that wasn't really an outlier in terms of looking back over the 3 or 4 games previous to that. In terms of, I know we didn't have 0, but we didn't have very many in the games 2 or 3 before that, and our XG, if you believe that sort of thing, was lower than all of the teams that we played, including Accrington. I think in the 4 games, is it 4 games since Accrington? It's lower than all of those, despite us having mid 60% possession in all of those games. The XG, and McKenna said it himself, isn't he? It's turning that possession into chances created, and that's only going to come through coaching and spending more and more and more time on the training ground.
Yeah, and figuring out which players he can trust in certain positions as well. And he's still learning, and we need to be patient, and I'm sure it will come. Andrew Pearson, special request to have Rich say consistently inconsistent in Cookie's voice. Consistently inconsistent.
It's made a comeback.
There you
What's
go.
the Chesterfield pod? Are you going to go on there and
Yeah, spy rights or whatever, isn't it? Yeah, he's going back apparently. I'll believe that when I see it. But good luck to Cookie.
You could do like a reverse Ronnie Moore, where someone pretended to be Ipswich and gave Ronnie Moore the Tranmere job. You could ring up Chesterfield
I'll
and
do it for
say,
free. I'll do it for free.
Cookie.
You don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay me. I'll do it for free. There you go.
Exactly.
Go on, bonus. Brilliant. I thought I'd lost it, but it's still there. McKenna, I'm not sure. I'm not going to go there. I don't think. I need to find someone else.
Yeah, let's not upset the
the new manager, and we might want to speak to him. It might, maybe one day he'll come on the pod. That'd be good, wouldn't it? But I don't want someone to play that to him. What else have we got? Not getting enough for Webster in the first place. Good old Mark Ashton doing the business for Bristol City there, wasn't it? Paul Westlake, 7,000 at MK to watch Wickham and Parrott score against us. So Ipswich hashtag no, Lee, no, you don't want that. None of us want that. Baconson is blue and Backinson. Until it's definitive, by the way, there will be an occasional Baconson in there because I think, here's my explanation here. I think Backinson's a very lazy English pronunciation, and I don't think there's a word. If it had a C before the K, then it's back. I think it's bake, like in baking. But I need the main man himself. I asked someone at ITFC, and they didn't give me the answer that I liked. So until I hear it from the man himself, I'm going to sprinkle in a Baconson every now and then. Sprinkle it in like hundreds and thousands. Has yet to play alongside a senior midfielder like Morsey or Evans. He's had Carroll. Yeah, fair point. Blue, I think that's a really good shout here.
Carroll is quite a senior midfielder, isn't he? Crikey, he's played,
but not played much game time, has he?
But he's not the sort of midfielder you want to be sat alongside because he ain't going to be doing any running for you.
No, definitely right. Skip, given the lack of creativity penetration, particularly v Sheffield Wednesday, do you think K-Mac might switch to a back four to give us more bodies in midfield? I mean, notionally, there's 5 bodies in midfield already, Skip, isn't there?
Yeah,
does that
so.
Really change?
I think if you go to a back four, it actually increases our number of defenders on the pitch rather than increases. But again, it will depend on getting Thompson up to speed and getting him further up the pitch, because on Saturday at Sheffield Wednesday he didn't really get forward particularly, and when he did get the ball, understandably he was looking backwards rather than looking to do anything extravagant. And by the same token, Wes Burns didn't do too much because they didn't allow him any space behind the fullback to run into, really.
Yeah. Everyone's getting David again. Thank you so much. Super sticker. And there you go, Craig from MW. Continue the good work. Blue Monday, GBNT was superb. Thank you, MW. Thank you, David, as well, guys. Super generous. Thank you so much for that. And we hope to have plenty more bits and pieces. Certainly things I can talk about now because they are actually happening. Is next week we will hopefully speak to ITFC Women's Lucy O'Brien, who we sponsor. Hoping that's we can sort that out and involve the folks who have joined us to do that, the Friends of Blue Monday. We'll be looking to repeat that situation in the summer. So keep your eyes peeled if you want to get involved in that and help us sponsor a player, either from the academy, maybe the first team, but certainly want to continue our support of ITFC women, who are doing excellently in the league and are in the 5th round of the FA Cup against Southampton. So really looking forward to speaking to Lucy, who scored the important goal away at Newcastle. The folk who have been interested in a book club podcast, we have got Joe, Dave and myself and special guest Mark Donaldson on the 16th of Feb to talk through the Paul Mariner book that Mark Ghost wrote and kind of authored along with Paul Mariner. So make sure you've got that read by the 16th of February. We'll have a bit of a Q&A and a debate and a discussion about the book with Mark. We'd love to have folk join us in for that. And if you haven't read the book, there may be some really fascinating insights to encourage you to read it. So do join us on Feb 16th for that. Otherwise, usual shows. We are back on Friday with the pre-match, talking Gillingham. That's Joe and I. And then on Monday morning, the flagship show is back, talking about the Gillingham match. with the help of your questions and observations. Respond to the usual tweet at full time. That is Ben back in the host chair for a hat-trick ball. And I think Joe and I think Dave, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that is the
I think
case.
that's
Yeah,
right.
I'm a away correspondent at the moment. I'm just racking up. I don't know why. I was just saying to everyone else what fantastic. I'm just racking up these away games at the moment. So
That's all
yeah,
right.
just getting them.
You've done
Get some
Portman
miles.
plenty.
Get some miles on the clock.
Exactly right. So yeah, do get involved in all those bits and pieces. Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk is where you can find all the details and what's going on, all of our audio feed, all of our video feeds, all of our socials. And I think we're looking to extend the website as well in the coming weeks as well. So more excitement there if websites are your kind of thing. Let's go back to the chat. We'll blitz the chat and then we'll call it a night. Plenty more business to go through.
What I'd like to know actually is who people want to play up front at the weekend.
Oh, they okay.
I'm sort of I'm a
Who are you
personally of
pitching
the
us?
opinion. Well, I'm not pitching Bon. I think Bon's race is run
I
for
think
the
Norwood's got Norwood's got to be involved.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't be averse. I'd appreciate what was said earlier about Piggott, but I just think he deserves a chance now, especially because the season is just maybe tailing off a little bit. It's a chance he's going to be here next season, hopefully. So
I'm gonna, given what we talked about, and given Gillingham are not a team. Well, I was going to say Gillingham are not a team in form. They won against Crewe the other night. I'd be tempted to start Piggott. How about that? Give Piggott a chance. All we're asking for is to give Piggott a chance. There you go. Well, Craig's question is open to everyone there. Stick your thoughts in the chat along with Star Wars, Ipswich Town Star Wars characters, scores for the transfer window out of 10, and any other words or phrases that you want me to say as Paul Cook. Though I won't be doing them down the phone to Chesterfield. Pablo Canuga, evening gents. I'm calling it now. We need to win our next 7 games, 21 points, no draws, all dubs. Gills, Burton, Cheltenham, Donny, MK, Morecambe, Fleetwood. Time to stop messing about. There's a call to action.
Well, it will certainly improve our points per game, won't it? I think Joe put something on our WhatsApp earlier saying that it looks like we're going to need something like 2.25 points per game to potentially reach 6th. I think, well, wow, that is far better than we've done, and even better than what we've been doing under McKenna, isn't it? It's instead of 4 wins out of 6, it's better than 4 wins and a draw out of 6. I think.
I think I'm kind of at the stage now where what will be with our season. If we manage to do a George Burley-esque dash to the finish line, happy days. Otherwise, I'm pretty comfortable with what we've got and who's in charge. And we go, and Osbar, we go
and write off yet another season. And
another season down at this level, which is a little bit depressing. Michael, what do you think? What do you guys think about us playing 2 number 10s? I guess Chaplin
didn't work on Saturday.
It did work against Accrington, though.
Yeah, it did. No, it did.
Horses for courses.
Saturday just but to be fair, I think McKenna does do that though, doesn't he? To be fair, he hasn't really been wedded to one particular system since he's been here. It'd be 1 up front with 2 behind, or 2 up front with 1 behind, or 3 up front and 1 slightly left of centre. So I think we have been actually tailoring our formation and personnel to the teams that we're coming up against. But on Saturday it didn't work. But I just the feeling that Saturday's just one of those days where nobody had a good game. So let's say things were bouncing off of Chaplin. Nothing was coming off for Chaplin. Selena barely got on the ball. And I say the two youngsters in midfield were a bit of a hiding to nothing really against their midfield 3, which they were up against. So just a bad day at the office, unfortunately.
And they happen. I think Backinson was brought in to spend some time in training, getting match fit. Morsey Evans Carroll meant that he had to go straight, and we can't really. I think that's a fair point there. Graham, a continuation of the point I just made. Could Gillingham be up for it on Saturday? Manager bounce. Neil Harris, isn't it?
Yeah, they've had that now.
It was on, and it sounded like we're super fortunate to beat Crewe as well. But
but they were getting their backsides handed to them every week, weren't they? That's the thing. To turn that around, to be fair to Harris, to turn around they were getting some absolute shellackings at home, weren't they? To turn that around to win. As you say,
Oxford as well.
But as you say, Crewe weren't particularly happy with our friend Darren Drysdale, well, or
Oh
Alan
yes,
Judge's friend Darren Drysdale.
yeah. I'm just going to check out the stats on away form, because obviously I think that was a Gillingham home win. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1-0. Yeah.
In the away league table, Gillingham are actually 20th. There you go. One win on the road though, 6 draws, 7 defeats. Whereas at home, they are 23rd. Only 3 wins at home, 4 draws, 8 defeats. There you go. So, yes.
I can't imagine they'll be giving Wes Burns the freedom of the space behind their left back like they did at Preesfield.
Yeah, well, and maybe Matt Penny might be back. I don't know. I guess Dominic Thompson's possibly the starter there now. But
yeah, I just thought so.
Penny obviously
Yeah,
made an impression against him, didn't he? But
he's been brought. Yeah, he's been brought into play, hasn't he? I'd have thought.
We're getting some more suggestions of transfer failures. Pavlo's Kaduga failure to sign Dos Santos. Yes. Yeah, maybe. What about this one, Craig? This old chestnut from Lee, failure to sign Batistuta. Yeah, I think those. I'd probably class those in the same sphere. Those
same
those
likelihood. Well, if we had have signed Batistuta, then we wouldn't have signed Adrian Paz, and I wouldn't have poked a scrap of paper. This is before, crikey, I'm going to show my age now. This is before Cardinal Park was even there, when it was all car lots and things. I once poked a bit of paper through a picket fence to Adrian Paz while he was buying a second-hand car from one of the car garages that used to be there. No. But he was with a swarthy-looking interpreter who I sort of gave the bit of paper to pass on to Adrian Paz.
And he wrote down a price for a card and sent it back over through the fence. Yeah,
and it was Mauricio
I'll give you
Tarico.
$4,000, nothing, no more.
It was Mauricio Tarico. I used Mauricio Tarico as a conduit to get scrap of paper to Adrian Paz.
What a great story! Why have we only just heard about this now, Craig? You've been on the pod for 2 years, whatever it is.
Still wrangles with me. I'm only just.
I love how we peel away the layers of the onion with you. All these great stories. There you go. And transfer Gretzerini, or the goalkeeper, Italian goalkeeper. What about this one? Failure to sign Gaza, and he came for a trial, didn't he? Yeah.
There was a few of them. I think Rude Hullet as well, wasn't he? Was one. Yeah. There's a rumor that we were trying to buy Pat Jennings, I think. When
I remember that. Yeah,
turn of the decade, like 80, 81, that sort of time, I think. And Ray Wilkins was another one that we were supposedly looking to buy back then.
Well, this talking about the Paul Mariner book, which we'll be talking about on the 16th with Mark Donaldson and hopefully all of you. Some really interesting transfer rumours in that. I mean, Mark mentioned the Barcelona bid, but there was other stuff in there as well. So I always love these kind of stories of transfers that never materialised or could have happened and stuff like that. Blue, Matete, 5'7" and 10 stone ringing wet. Don't think we really need another small player in our ranks. I think, and that goes to my point from before, I really wish we'd sign another Morsey type midfielder who's we let Downs go, obviously. But since we've been down in League One, I think Dave and I have been pretty consistent that we lack enforcers in midfield. Ideally enforcers who are not going to get red cards or unfortunate red cards. But and
that's a good point about the height as well. I can't think which game it was. One of the more recent games, we had a tiny team playing. We had Chaplin and Selena. Carroll was playing. I can't think who else was playing, but you looked across the whole team. It was just not particularly big compared to the other teams that were coming up for corners and bits and pieces like that. It does make a difference in this division.
Your question about who should start front. I mean, your question inferred that you're sticking with the 2 number 10s.
No.
Okay, fine.
I'm Pigott and Norwood.
Pigott and Norwood. Matthew Kinch, we played 2 up top last Saturday. There you go. And do you think we should see some youngsters as we approach the end of the season? I mean, centre back options, Elkan Baggott and Alfie Armin, is it? Centre backs could get a chance. Cameron Humphreys, I think, has been training with the first team as well. So Matthew's got a point there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of the likes of Burgess potentially, just to see what he's like, just so McKenna can see him in a match situation, because he's cost £750,000. If he's going to be no good to McKenna, then he needs to go again in the summer and cross the way we take £250,000, whatever it is, because otherwise it's probably a hefty wage on our wage bill that we don't need. If he's not going to play, we can't carry him, can we?
Mark wants to see Bon and Norwood up top, surely more often than not. for the rest of the season. Here we go. Loads. Let's skip where we go. There you go. Norwood and Piggott.
Yeah.
Pivot. I think it's Piggott and Norwood. Piggott needs a chance. Luco behind Bond and Norwood up front for me. Piggott and Simpson. HCH. Love that. Norwood and the Big. Norwood and Chaplin. David shoving Chaplin up the pitch a little bit. That could be interesting. Norwood and Piggott. Charlie D. Unpopular opinion. I'm not sure Bond deserves the hype. Norpig, says Lee. There you go. So some thoughts there.
I think I'm not speaking on everyone's behalf, but it seems an opportunity to allow Piggott a run of games like we've given to Bond. And I say, Phil Bond's just hasn't been, no slight on him. It happens, doesn't it? Crikey, he's never going to keep up what he was doing at the beginning of the season, but he has tailed off, and even his performances haven't been fantastic. So the ball, like it was Chaplin, the ball was bouncing off him on the very rare occasion he got it, and I appreciate he was playing up front all by himself, poor sod, but it's just an opportunity to try, from my perspective, just something a bit different.
Yep. Howard is back. Agree with others. Brady signed Mark Poom and getting Serena still was a big sign doors moment. Goalkeeper, such an important position. Walton is a great signing. I think we definitely agree with that. Michael is Thompson a fullback or a wing back? I think he's played left back more consistently for Brentford. And I wasn't massively impressed, but again, similar to Backinson, kind of chucked in at the deep end, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, he didn't. Crikey, again, it's 90 minutes. We can't judge him. Let's not judge him on 90 minutes. He didn't look that much of an upgrade on Penny, for example.
No.
And Coulson, to my mind, what we saw of Coulson, he'd certainly looked at a more attacking fullback. But he's had a week being coached, hasn't he? So let's see what he's like on Saturday.
Skip, giving some insight here. Brentford fans seem to think he's decent going forwards, but not so hot defensively. Suggests he's a wing back. Yeah, I mean we'll have to
We've
see.
Got loads of those, haven't we? Loads of those type of wing backs.
We've got Charlie D, Star Wars, Roy Keane. Definitely Boba Fett seems cool when you were young, but ultimately just annoying and doesn't do much. There you go.
He was always my favourite Boba Fett. I haven't seen the series though, the one on Disney. I haven't seen that. The Mandalorian.
Not heard.
Boba Fett.
Not heard great things, but
I used to like Boba Fett. He was always my little outsider that was on the edge, but he looked quite cool, as you say.
There you go. Oh, more layers of the Craig Finbow onion just peeled away there. Boba Fett. I don't really care about Boba Fett. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah. Lando Calrissian, he was always quite cool as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I've got plenty of time for Lando. What was the Solo film spin-off film with Donald Glover playing? He was excellent in that. There you go. That's there's a recommendation for you. Also, if you're in the need for other box sets to binge, Only Murders in the Building on Disney Plus. I can also recommend that. Having just recently finished that. There you go. Oh, all kinds of stuff on this show, isn't it? Blum. That's what we're about.
I've just finished watching season 11 of Curb, and we're starting to watch Afterlife, Ricky Gervais. So
Afterlife 3, also good. Recommend that too. Get all the good. Any other bits and pieces of advice you need, just stick it in the chat. Craig and I are on top of it. Michael Piggott can drop into another part. Let's play 3 number 10s. So there you go. Howard wants to release the pig. Nathan, g'day in Melbourne. Great to have you with us. MW Nord in reality, but I'd like to have Piggott. There we go. A lot of groundswell of support for Joe Piggott. Lee, I can't keep writing off seasons, guys. Life is part.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly right.
Especially in bloody January.
Yes. Well, it's February now.
Well, yeah, but
only a few months left.
We lost to Sheffield Wednesday in January.
Norwood, Chaplin up front, Piggott in behind. Interesting. Target man, maybe. Nathan Hall, what do you think a midfield of Dazelle, Downs, and Morsey would have done under McKenna? Sounds sexy, that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I guess we can't really.
Let's not think about that, Nathan.
Just don't dangle those things in there. And Mark Stewart and David Johnson up front under McKenna. What about that?
I know damn well that the opposition midfield would have been kicked a damn sight more by a Downs and Morsey midfield than they were by a Backinson and El Mazouni.
Yeah, it's a nice tripod situation there, isn't it? FPL Attractive Town women drew one of the really big sides in the FA Cup quarterfinal. Could the Gold Star handle it? It's a good question. I posted a clip when we spoke with Town first team coach Joe Sheehan. I suspect if they drew a WSL team at home, Portman Road probably would. They try and get it at Portman Road. But the Gold Star is an underrated venue, and home advantage is crucial. And you kind of think, well, what kind of a situation would suit a WSL team? Would it be going to Portman Road, or would it be going to the Gold Star ground? No disrespect to the Gold Star ground. So those are factors. But yeah, if there's demand, FPL Tractor, and the only real way that people can demonstrate their demand for the women's team to play at Portman Road is to turn up at the Gold Star round, guys. So 27th of February, £5 to get in. Kids get in free. Give the ITFC women's team your support because they deserve it. They've got a really their season is far from over. They're in the FA Cup. They're top of the league. They're obviously the teams around them have got games in hand, but all to play for. So do get down to the Gold Star. Do agitate that games are played at Portman Road. The only way that will happen is that the pitch gets fixed at some point, or if the demand is there to make it happen. So let's help them make it happen at least once, maybe this season, and maybe a bit more frequently in the future. Jackson and Norwin up front. John Smith going for the retro 1920 vibe there. What else have we got on the Sheffield Wednesday? Says Mark Prime. Bad performance, but in terms of the result, it wasn't terrible. I reckon we'd have taken a point. We didn't get it. 1 point drop. It was that was kind of a sense that I had as well.
It's 1 point. It's 1 point drop for us, but it's 3 points.
It's 3 points for Sheffield. It's the switcheroo on Sheffield Wednesday, isn't it? Mike also agreeing on Pat Jennings. Michael Warner signed Frank Bruno. He had a good punch on him. Is there a football link to Frank Bruno there that I'm missing? Howard, Andre Wisdom still available on a free for centre half cover. There you go. Free transfers can still be done, can't they? I think there's a point where they.
I think they can until I think they can be done until the old transfer deadline, which was end of March. Is it? I think you can still register people. I don't know. I'm making it up.
Nathan's continuing his dangling of whatabouteries just to troll me. Playing 2 up 2 would have allowed to play 3 midfield, and Fraser could have shone. Yeah, he could have, Nathan. He bloody could have. I agree with you. Here. Too late now. He'll do well at Charlton. Skip Steve Evans as Jabba the Hutt for sure. Not an Ipswich link there, Skip, but I know where you're coming from. We'll appreciate that one. Support for Boba Fett. There you go. Spannerman, here you go. Do we think Sunderland will get promoted this season? We'll give Spannerman your thoughts in the comments, folks.
Not automatically.
Yeah, I do think the managerial appointment is going to be a crucial one. I think there's enough quality in that squad there, but the streakiness hasn't been resolved. You appointed Lee Johnson, the streakiest of all streaky managers. These away collapses like Bolton and Oxford, Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think teams don't get promoted automatically for me getting kickings like that. I think you're a good bet for the playoffs. And to be honest, Defoe and Matete, great business, isn't it, Craig, on deadline day? It's just a question of, are you more consistent than Rotherham and Wigan? And I guess my thought is no.
No, I think they're already they've played 3 more games than Wigan and are 2 points behind Wigan. I know Wigan are going to have a lot of games. All of a sudden, they'll be playing three times a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. But I just think Wigan have got such a lot of good momentum behind them, haven't they? They're just going to carry on a roll, I would have thought. And Rotherham, as we know, a little bit of a hiccup, didn't they? Rotherham a couple of weeks ago, where they dropped down to 3rd, 4th, but they seem to have picked up again, and they'll just churn them out when they now to the end of the season. You'd have thought. So it may be a case that, as you said at the beginning, Rich, we may end up having to play them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I kind of think like Ipswich being in League One feels moderately better because I know teams like Sunderland are there. It's like, is it 21 Jump Street or 22 Jump Street when they get high? It's 21 Jump Street when they get high on the, I forget what it's called. They get high and Channing Tatum's having a really great trip. And, Jonah Hill is not, and he drags him down with him into the pits of hell or whatever. And I kind of think that we both do that to each other.
just
We drag each
collective
other.
unhappiness.
You can't go up, Spanner, unless we go up with you. We can't be. I don't want to be cut adrift in League One. And we kind of
we'll have a
to
pact. So we'll either finish first and second, or we're not going to bother. We'll just hang around here for a
right
few
the season off. FBI tried to skip harsh on Jabba that one, Steve Evans. Last call. We are ticking up to an hour, so we won't be hanging around too much longer. Predictions for Saturday: either more lineups or scores. Get them to us. As a reminder, I left that Jabba the Hutt quote up, didn't I? Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk for all the information of what you need for our shows. All of our socials and stuff like that is going on across the bottom as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, do give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, why not subscribe? Because interviews like George Burley might crop up from time to time. All of our podcasts are there. We might stick up the odd special video and compilations and all that kind of fun words. All that fun stuff is there. So Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk for all the bits and pieces you need to find out. And let's just finish off. Let's see how rapidly we can go on there. Michael, 10 Houghton, I think we're going to draw on Saturday. No, Michael, no. Meltdown afterwards. Always. Matthew, Roy Keane Sunderland, he's going for an interview. I think that's latest news. So yeah, Spanner-Man, Matthew, possible. Lol. All the best, Spanner-Man. He's not the same Roy Keane that got you guys promoted, certainly. But maybe he's learned from the errors of his ways. He's best mates with Mika Richards now. Maybe he's chilled out. Who knows?
I don't think cuddly Roy Keane doesn't exist.
No. There you go. Paul Cooks, Sunderland, the playoffs, says Paul Westlake. Oh, 1-1, says Lee. I'm assuming that's Gillingham. Charlie D, thanks, chaps. 2-0 to us. Pigadorwood, nervous 2-1. Saturday, nervous about the new manager bounce, but think we'll edge it, maybe 2-1. Craig, any final predictions from you?
No, I'm just intrigued as to how we're going to line up, and if McKenna's going to take the Sheffield Wednesday performance as an opportunity just to maybe rejig things. We may see it, as someone said earlier. Skip said earlier, we may see a different formation. Who knows? I say he just seems to sort of be intimating that. Now, without coming out and saying it, the season's over, but just sort of intimating it's going to be a bit tricky now. So it may just be a chance for him now, between now and the end of the season, just to try different things and try different people and see him in the flesh. But I'd hope, regardless of all that we'll be good enough to beat Gillingham by a couple of goals, and certainly Doncaster. Gillingham were getting their backsides handed to them plate. Doncaster are certainly having their backsides handed to them on a plate every week, aren't they?
Yeah. Final flurry, 5-0 Nord hat-trick. There you go. Thanks, Michael. Great to have you with us from another great day in Brisbane. Paul, looking forward to the pre-match show. That'll be out on Friday morning. See you on Saturday. Spannerman, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate getting perspectives from other clubs. Sunderland, a massive club, as we know. We all want to get promoted together. All the best for Saturday. I think you're expecting big numbers in there and for a good cause as well. So thank you for joining us, Spannerman. And thank you, everyone else. I really appreciate the contributions in the comments. Apologies if you had issues commenting from Facebook or Twitter. We had a good amount from YouTube. Thank you for those who did super chats. Really appreciate those. Thank you for your generosity. It only helps us drive more content and hopefully better quality content at that. We mentioned the pre-match show, the flagship shows back as well. But back to Portman Road on Saturday. Fingers crossed, a win to give us more playoff hope. And as Ben said, I'll end with Ben's words from the flagship show. It's the hope that kills you. Thanks, everyone.